Hello everyone, and welcome back to another video. This is the third episode of the story, where Maito trades Neji and Tenten for Naruto and Hinata. Can he turn this motley crew of misfits into a team of geniuses? Or will he be compelled to stop wearing spandex for good? Remember to like, share, and subscribe to the channel after watching the video. So, let's begin. Hello everyone, and welcome back to another video. This is the third episode of the story, where Maito trades Neji and Tenten for Naruto and Hinata. Can he turn this motley crew of misfits into a team of geniuses? Or will he be compelled to stop wearing spandex for good? Remember to like, share, and subscribe to the channel after watching the video. So, let us begin. Naruto walked slowly through the streets of Konoha. It was 5:30 in the morning. Today was Sunday, and as Gai-sensei had explained the night before, they would have every Sunday off completely to themselves. Naruto had cheered at this announcement. While he liked his new team a lot and all the training was great, he needed time off. He would at least enjoy sleeping until 2 in the afternoon. At least that was what he thought. Yet he found himself up at 4:45. Try as he might, he just couldn't force himself back into sleep. So he gave up and decided to walk around the village. Naruto soon discovered that the village was boring at 5 in the morning. No one was up, and as such there was no activity. At least no one was glaring at him. Without even thinking about it, Naruto walked into the training ground where his team always met up. To his surprise, Hinata was also standing there. Her back was turned and she hadn't noticed him yet. So he got her attention. "Yo, Hinata. You couldn't sleep either?" Naruto didn't think he had been quite that loud, at least compared to Gai-sensei, but Hinata jumped and squeaked in surprise. She turned around and waited for Naruto to walk up to her. "Good morning, Naruto-kun." Hinata bowed and smiled slightly at him. "No, I couldn't sleep. It just doesn't feel right anymore. I unconsciously ended up here." Naruto chuckled at what she said. "That's pretty funny, the same thing happened to me. It's so boring in this village in the morning. I wonder what Bushy-brow and Gai-sensei do. They are probably running laps around the village." Naruto laughed hard at Hinata's answer. She blushed after she spoke. When had she gotten so good at just talking to Naruto? A week ago it was so hard just to stand close to him. "You're really funny, Hinata. I never would have guessed that before. You were always so quiet and weird when we were in class." Hinata looked down as Naruto spoke. He thought she was weird. But he had also just said she was funny. His opinion must have changed, right? Hinata wanted to laugh. She never would have thought that second part a week ago. She would always stop at the negative parts, but lately, it was getting easier for her to think more positive thoughts. "You know what else is kind of funny," Naruto said. "A week ago, everything seemed so different. It feels like I'm a completely different person now." Hinata smiled again. "I was thinking the same thing just now. I'm glad to have been placed on a team with them. And more importantly, on a team with you," Hinata added in her head. She didn't have near enough confidence yet to say it aloud. Maybe someday soon she would. She could only hope. Naruto gave Hinata a big smile. She was so much different from Sakura. Hinata never hit him or yelled at him. She was nice. The thoughts of Sakura almost immediately brought him down. He had told Lee that he would give up on her, but it was proving hard to do. Feelings just didn't disappear. Thinking of that bet brought up another thought. He needed to get Lee a girlfriend still. Suddenly a light bulb went off in Naruto's head. He knew how he could spend the day. "Hinata!" Naruto shouted suddenly. Naruto placed his hands on her shoulders and looked her right in the eyes. "Why wise?" Naruto's shout caught her off guard and she found his look very unnerving. "I have a very important question to ask you. Please answer me honestly." Naruto's voice was deadly serious. Don't worry about hurting my feelings. I won't be upset if you say no. Hinata's mind was spinning. A question? It wasn't possible. Did Naruto want to ask her out on a date? It was all developing too fast. Visions of Naruto and herself holding hands, going to the movies, and eating together came into her mind almost too fast to comprehend. Will you go out with? Here it came. All she had to do was say yes. Hopefully, she didn't pass out. Bushy brow. Naruto finished. Wait, who? Lee Senpai? Hinata didn't understand. What had just happened? Naruto thought she liked Lee. That wasn't possible. Had he noticed them spending time together? Yeah, Lee, bushy brow, same thing. Do you remember I promised to get him a girlfriend? Well, that's what I'm gonna do today. I will get bushy brow his first date. It'll make things easy if you like him though. The only thing I'll have to do is find him. Naruto nodded happily to himself while it all clicked together for Hinata. Naruto didn't want to go out with her. But he also didn't think she liked Lee. He was just making good on his promise. That meant Hinata wasn't doomed to failure yet. Sorry, Naruto-kun, but I don't like Lee Senpai that way. Hinata pressed her index fingers together. There is someone I already like. She said it. Maybe he would pick up on it. Naruto's brow furrowed as he looked at her. You like Sasuke too, huh? Not a big surprise though. All the girls like that jerk. Hinata's mouth was agape, that had not gone as planned. It was time to backtrack. Her heart wouldn't be able to take this much longer. Two don't like Sasuke-san. She tried to say more but her mouth stopped working on her. Really? Naruto looked at her suspiciously for a moment. Then he smiled brightly at her. That's right, you're way too smart to like someone like him. He wouldn't treat you right anyway. A nice girl like you deserves much better. Naruto gave her an imitation of their sensei's nice guy pose. To her surprise, his smile even seemed to glow slightly. Hinata felt her face heating up at Naruto's praise. Alright, well that knocks you and Sakura-kun out for girlfriend candidates. We're going to have to wait a while, but once the day gets going I know just the girl to ask next. Naruto nodded to himself while all his brilliant ideas whirled. WWE? Hinata was pressing her index fingers together again. Naruto stopped his plotting to look at Hinata. Sorry, Hinata. You don't have to spend the day with me helping, I'll do it. Hinata surprised them both. She hadn't meant to, but at the words, day with me, she couldn't help herself. She would have given anything for a chance like this a week ago. Now that the chance just fell into her palm, she wouldn't let it go, no matter what happened. Awesome, you are the best, Hinata. It'll be way easier to convince Ino with another girl around. Naruto started walking away from the training ground. Hinata jogged up to him and then fell into pace with his walk. Did you just say Ino? Hinata had her doubts about that. It was going to end up exactly like what had happened with Sakura. Maybe worse. Of course. Ino is a perfect start. I know right where they'll be at 10 anyways. They were now back into the open streets. Hinata wasn't even sure if he had a current destination in mind. 10 o'clock was still 4 hours away. How do you know that, Naruto-kun? Hinata couldn't figure out how Naruto would know something like that. She knew he liked Sakura, but maybe he liked Ino too. Hinata shook her head. Naruto was not like that. Simple, the only person with a bigger appetite than me is Choji, and he eats at the same place every morning at 10. He used to just drag Shikamaru there, but now I hear it's the whole team's meeting spot. Hinata wanted to know where Naruto had learned this as well. Soon the two fell into a repeated pattern. Hinata would ask Naruto a question and he would spout out answers. Sometimes he would rant on for half an hour. This continued as they walked through the village, occasionally taking a rest on a bench on the streets. Hinata couldn't ever remember having talked or laughed for that matter, so much in her whole life. Even just these short few hours with Naruto made her forget all about her problems. It was 10 o'clock, much too soon for Hinata's taste. She had enjoyed the morning, but now it was down to business. The hunt for Lee's girlfriend was on. She just wished it didn't have to start with Ino. Hinata looked up at the Korean barbecue they now stood in front of. She couldn't help but feel a little apprehensive about entering. The last time Naruto had entered a restaurant, things hadn't gone too well. In a rare moment of insight, Naruto picked up on her unease. "Don't worry, whenever I skipped class with Choji we would end up here." Hinata looked at Naruto curiously. She had been under the impression that he had always been alone. She didn't know when he had cut class it had ever been with anyone else. Then again, there were a lot of things about Naruto she didn't know. Her train of thought was interrupted as she noticed he was going in. Naruto pushed the door open and walked in, followed closely by Hinata. Looking around, Naruto found exactly the people he was looking for. Just as predicted. Hinata was surprised. She had not expected to see Ino here. But here she was, albeit she didn't look happy about it, with her teammates and the one Hinata assumed was their sensei. Naruto walked on over. "What's up, guys? Long time no see." Team 10 looked up at Naruto. Ino and Shikamaru groaned while Choji ate his food a little faster. Like he was afraid Naruto was going to take some. Hinata almost giggled at the thought. Their sensei was the only one to reply. "Hey there kid, the name's Asuma. I see you know my young students here. So tell me, to what do we owe you this pleasure?" Asuma watched Naruto carefully. He was well aware of the boy's reputation as a prankster. He didn't want to end up on the receiving end of his pranks. "I'm here to talk with Ino." Naruto pointed to the blonde girl. "What, me? Why me? Can't you bug Shikamaru?" Ino looked shocked. Her mentioned teammate said something about troublesome blondes, but she decided to ignore it for the moment. This new development was much more curious. Naruto had never really talked to her. The only girl Naruto ever really looked at was Sakura. Maybe it was a jealousy approach to win her over. Ino wanted no part of it. Then she noticed Hinata. Naruto was pulling out a team picture that they had taken just a couple of days ago. Naruto loved this picture. He had one in a frame at home. He had made a copy though so she could show the girls just who Lee was. Not that looks were a great approach, but the girl who accepted might as well know what they were in for. Oh ho! Ino was now in between Naruto and Hinata. Naruto hadn't even seen her move and jumped when she spoke up. He almost dropped his picture in surprise. "This sure is cute. The two of you on a date, huh?" Hinata blushed heavily and suddenly found her feet very interesting. "Even dressed similarly, you two are just so adorable." Ino squealed to herself. "We're not on a date." Naruto deadpanned. Ino nearly fell over. "Then why the hell are you here? I thought maybe you were going to ask me about getting her flowers." Ino was getting pissed. Just what did this kid want? "I want you to go out with someone," Naruto said in his serious voice. "What? Who? Is he good-looking? Is it Sasuke-kun?" Naruto's seriousness caught her off guard and she found she couldn't help but be a little curious. "This guy right here." Naruto indicated the part of the picture Lee was in and Ino peered curiously. "His name is Rock Lee," and Naruto never got to finish his sentence as Ino sent him out the window. Naruto landed painfully on his back outside the restaurant. Thankfully, it was an open window with no glass. "Is this some kind of joke, Naruto? I should kill you." Yep, she was pissed. Naruto had expected as much, but he had been hoping. Hinata quickly ran around from the side of the restaurant to him. "Are you okay, Naruto-kun?" She bent over him and offered her hand to help him up. Naruto grabbed it, and just as he got up he saw Ino, kunai drawn, stepping out the window. "Time to go, Hinata." Without letting go of her hand he took off down the streets, pulling Hinata along the whole way. They weaved through the streets that were steadily filling with people. They didn't have to go many blocks though before Naruto decided it was safe enough. Phew, that sure was close. I thought she was going to kill me. Right, Hinata? Hinata? Hinata's voice wouldn't work. For that matter, her brain wouldn't work. The only thought that kept running in her head was, "I'm holding hands with Naruto-kuna." Hinata could have died right there and she would have been content. Naruto just then realized they were still holding hands and immediately let go. "Sorry, Hinata. I didn't even realize." Naruto couldn't think of how to finish. He was too scared. If he had done that to Sakura he would have been 6 feet under by now. Surely Hinata was going to snap at any second. With the warmth of his hand gone, Hinata managed to find her voice. Don't mind, Naruto-kun." Naruto was astonished. She wasn't going to kill him? You don't? Are you sure you're not mad? Your face is pretty red. Hinata shook her head. I wouldn't get mad over something like that, Naruto-kun. I'm not like Sakura-san. Hinata wasn't sure why she said Sakura's name, but it came out. Suddenly she couldn't help it, she had to say it. I don't see why you like her so much anyways. She is always so cruel to you. Naruto was suddenly very quiet. Hinata regretted what she said and was about to apologize when Naruto answered. She didn't have any friends. I mean, at first, she had Ino, but they stopped talking. No one liked her. Everyone made fun of her forehead. It wasn't something she had any control over, but they ripped on her for it and refused to hang out with her. I felt we were alike. So I decided I liked her. Because we are similar. Naruto stared at the street the whole time he talked. I always thought you and I were similar. Hinata's words caused Naruto to look up in surprise. Hinata steeled her nerves and kept talking. You were shunned by the whole village. I was shunned by my whole clan. I want nothing more than to become the clan heiress and be acknowledged by everyone in the clan, especially by my father. Just like how you want to become Hokage so the whole village will acknowledge you. It was Hinata who was now staring at the street. Naruto was shocked. He had never known that about Hinata. He always thought she had gotten on well with her family. To think that they treated her like the village treated him made him angry. Your family is a bunch of morons. Hinata now looked up. Anyone who would treat you, the nicest person I know, like garbage is the lowest form of scum I can think of. No one treats my teammate that way. Naruto stopped walking and Hinata followed suit. Naruto stuck his fist out towards Hinata. I vow with all my power that I'll do everything I can so that we both accomplish our dreams and get accepted by the people we want it from. Hinata almost couldn't hold it in. She was so close to crying, but she couldn't do that in front of Naruto. He made her so happy, the last thing she wanted was for him to think he was making her sad. So she smiled at him instead. She knocked her fist into his. I make the same vow. We will be accepted. She whispered. Then a third fist knocked into theirs. This one came from Konohamaru, who stood just below them. I don't know what kind of vow we're making, but I swear to it as well, boss. Suddenly 2 more fists knocked into theirs and Naruto turned to see Moegi and Udon had joined them as well. The sight of the new arrivals reminded Naruto of his original goal. How fortunate that his next target would come right to him. Moegi, it's good to see you. Naruto squatted down and put a hand on Moegi's shoulder. Huh, what's up with that, boss? Don't ignore me. Konohamaru whined and tugged on Naruto's sleeve. Naruto ignored him anyway. Tell me, you wouldn't happen to have a crush on anyone at the moment, would you? Moegi looked down and blushed at her feet. Boss, she started. Yeah. The anticipation was killing him. Boys have cooties. Naruto fell backward. Never mind, let's go Hinata. Naruto got up and started walking off. A very perturbed Hinata walked after him. The Konohamaru Corps just stared at them curiously as the two walked off. Naruto-kun? Hinata asked after a hesitant second. Yeah. Naruto glanced at her. Did you just try to set Lee Senpai up with that little girl? Hinata had felt herself lose a little respect for Naruto at that moment. No, of course not. Naruto waved it off. Hey, is that whom I think it is? Naruto asked suddenly. Don't change the subject, Naruto-kun. There are laws, you can— No. Bushy Brow's old teammate. 9 or something like that. Naruto pointed to where he was looking. You mean Tenten? Hinata shook her head. Sometimes she had to remind herself why she loved him. Yeah, that's her name. Quick, we can't let her get away. Naruto took off after her. Hinata of course followed. But not before making another vow to continue this conversation later. Hey, Tenten, wait up. Naruto roared through the crowd. Hearing her name, Tenten turned around to see both of Lee's new teammates running up to her. She smiled at them. She had been hoping to run into them sometime. Although she figured Lee would be with them. Caught up to you. Naruto stopped just in front of her. Good morning, Tenten-san, Hinata said as she caught up. Morning there, you too. How have you been adjusting to Gai-sensei's workout? Tenten looked them up and down. They had already changed their clothes to green since she'd last seen them. It's tough, getting up at 5 every morning was a pain at first, but we're getting it. Exercising after those missions though always leaves a burn. Naruto replied calmly, but Tenten's mouth fell open. You mean you guys go through that ridiculous schedule he has Lee doing? Tenten was horrified. She didn't think anyone could keep up with those two. Of course. Didn't you? Hinata was curious now. While she knew Niji didn't go through with it, she had at least assumed Tenten had. No way. That is insane. Who needs to work that much? Besides, I'm a weapons specialist. Best in my class. I don't need to learn that kind of taijutsu. Tenten shook her head at the two in front of her. You're a genius too. Naruto narrowed his eyes slightly at Tenten. Well, I'm no Niji, but I guess some would call me that. I've always been gifted with good accuracy. She had a feeling Naruto wasn't a fan of geniuses, but there was no denying it to him. Then, I challenge you to one-on-one combat. Naruto shouted. If I win, you have to agree to go on a date with Bushy Brow. A minute of silence passed between the genin. Bushy Brow? Tenten had to ask. You know, Lee. Naruto shouted. Did no one see the eyebrows? Tenten thought for another second. And if I win, you agree to do one thing I say? Naruto had not anticipated that. Whatever though. She had accepted. Good enough for him. All right, let's do this. Naruto shouted and formed the ram seal. Naruto-kun, Hinata whispered to him. What is it, Hinata? I'm about to fight here. Naruto looked at Tenten and saw she too was looking at him oddly. We're still in the middle of the street, people are staring. Naruto looked around to confirm what Hinata had said. As usual, she was right. Of course, to the training ground. Naruto walked off much too proudly. Hinata and now a laughing Tenten followed. This was going to be easier than she thought. 15 minutes later, Naruto and Tenten stood facing each other in Team Guy's typical clearing. Sure you want to do this? Tenten asked. I don't want to humiliate you in front of your girlfriend. I won't be the one humiliated. That person is you. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Naruto formed his favorite seal and 3 clones popped into existence. Charge! They all started running towards Tenten. Shadow clones, huh? Tenten remarked calmly. Well, this will be interesting. She pulled out a scroll and made a hand sign. The clones stopped fast and watched wearily for her jutsu. A Kusarigama popped out. Tenten grabbed it and placed the scroll back in her pouch. The weapon consisted of a small kama on one end with a weighted ball attached to a lengthy chain on the other. I'll give you a handicap, she announced. This weapon here is the only one I'll use. She dropped the weighted end and began swinging it around from its chain. Don't underestimate me. All the clones rang out. With one fluid motion, they all hurled a kunai at Tenten. Still swinging the ball, she easily deflected all the kunai skyward. As each one fell downwards, she nailed them with the kama and sent them flying at the Narutos. The handle of the kunai knocked them each in the forehead protector. All but one was extinguished. Tenten launched herself at Naruto and swung the blade down. Damn! Naruto cursed and formed the seal again. A clone popped up behind himself. The clone grabbed Naruto by the collar and pulled him backward, throwing him into the air and safely out of Tenten's swing. Not so fast. Tenten swung the ball again, beaming the new clone, which popped quickly out. Naruto was still in midair from the way his clone had thrown him. Making another clone underneath himself, Naruto angled his feet so he could jump off of it. Adding a little chakra to his feet, Naruto launched skywards. He pulled out 3 shurikens and whipped them down at his target. Didn't you learn last time? Tenten knocked all 3 back at Naruto as he started his fall. With no way to dodge, he made another clone which intercepted the attack and popped. Naruto made 2 more that caught him before he hit the ground. You're not defending. Tenten taunted. Is that all Gai Sensei has taught you how to do, hide behind your clones? Naruto smirked. He taught me more than that, he also taught me that surprises can kill. Suddenly the clone Naruto had jumped off of grabbed onto Tenten from behind. Gotcha now. The clone had her arms locked. Tenten struggled to get free, but the clone had an iron grip on her. The other 3 Narutos started to charge her now. Tenten thought fast. Fortunately for her, Naruto was much shorter than her and his clone's feet weren't on the ground. That meant he couldn't anchor himself to it. Tenten pushed the chakra into her feet and launched herself upwards, clone and all. The clone had not expected that and loosened his grip just for a second. It was enough though for Tenten to break free. With a spinning kick, she sent it crashing down onto the other Narutos. Still, in the air, she began spinning the ball again. Naruto lost all his clones and was bowled over himself from the shock of the impact. He was just getting to his feet when the chain began spinning around him. It quickly wrapped itself around the young genin and he toppled over. Tenten then landed roughly on top of him and pushed her blade to his throat. My win. She grinned coyly down at her captive. Naruto-kun. Hinata ran up to her blonde teammate, worry apparent in her eyes. Don't worry, Hinata. Naruto gasped out. It was hard for him to breathe with the chain wrapped tightly around his body and a girl sitting on top of him. I'm all right. You got spirit, I'll give you that, Tenten remarked as she stepped off of him. She summoned the weapon back into her scroll and then offered Naruto a helping hand. Naruto ignored it and slowly got to his feet, gasping hard. Hinata wanted badly to go over to him and lend him her shoulder, but she didn't want to further hurt his pride. Tenten had got him pretty good. Naruto-kun. She said quietly to herself. Not quietly enough though, because Naruto heard her. Hey, don't worry about it, Hinata. Stuff like this is nothing new to me. Naruto gave her a smile that she instantly knew was fake. That loss is nothing to be ashamed of. I'm a genin a year ahead of you. Of course, there is going to be a gap. The important thing is you caught me off guard with that clone. Not even Sasuke has managed to get me like that yet. I did better than Sasuke? Naruto looked up with a new sense of pride in his eyes. Knowing he did better than that jerk was the best news he had heard all day. Tenten smiled. Don't let it go to your head though, I still kicked your ass. Now I believe you owe me a favor. Naruto gulped. He couldn't imagine what this girl would ask of him. Tenten stepped closer and put a hand on both Naruto's and Hinata's shoulders. Naruto was nervous now. She had a really serious look on her face. Take good care of Lee for me. I know it may not seem like it, but I worry about the guy. He was a good teammate and I'm trusting you guys to keep him happy for me. Naruto let out an instant sigh of relief. That was it? He smiled broadly at her. No problem. Bushy Brow is our friend too. There's no way we'd let something happen to him. Hinata nodded her agreement. Tenten smiled again. I'm glad to hear it. Now, go find him a good girlfriend. Yes. Naruto and Hinata said together. The two teammates now sat dejected at Ichiraku's. Every idea so far had failed. Sure, they'd only tried 4 girls. 5, if you counted Hinata. Yet nothing had worked out at all and now they were out of girls they knew. This sucks. Naruto voiced their thoughts for them. I mean, sure, he dresses a little strange, but they didn't give him a chance at all. I mean, really. Who believes in cooties anymore? I thought only girls were supposed to have that anyway. Naruto ranted. Please don't bring up Moejikan, Hinata muttered darkly. She had still not entirely forgiven Naruto for that. Although she had kept her word and talked to him about it already. Sorry, Naruto mumbled. Even Hinata was scary when mad. At least she hadn't hit him. What seems to be troubling 2 of my favorite customers? Tucci had just arrived from the back to see the 2 depressed genin. No girl will give Bushy Brow the time of day. Naruto exclaimed. He's a great guy, if only someone would give him a chance they would see that. Naruto was back to his rant. Bushy Brow? Tucci scratched his head. That older teammate of yours? He needs a date. I promised I'd get him one, but so far I got nothing. Naruto hit his head on the counter. I may be able to help you out. Tucci smiled evilly at his daughter as she emerged. What's with that look? Didn't like it. Naruto and Hinata stood on the edge of the village. They had finally got Lee a date, but to their horror realized they had no idea where Lee was at all. Now they had less than half an hour to find him and get him there. They had checked everywhere they could think of and this was their last bet. Hopefully, their crazy teammate was running laps around the village. They didn't have to wait long for their teammate to come running into sight. They both released a breath they hadn't realized they'd been holding. Lee smiled brightly when he saw his teammates. My youthful compatriots. How bright it makes my day to meet you here. Perhaps you have been running laps as well? Bushy Brow, listen up, we gotta hurry. Naruto said urgently. Lee caught the urgency in his voice and became serious. Do not tell me someone is hurt. The village is not under attack, is it? No, we got you a date. But if you don't get to Ichiraku's soon you're going to be late. The urgency is still very much in Naruto's voice. Huh? Lee said stupidly. A date, Hinata repeated. With whom? Lee asked, quickly recovering from his shock. I am Aniken. Naruto grabbed onto Lee's arm and started pulling him. The ramen girl? But is she not a little old for me? Lee was really confused now. Nah, she's 17, you're like 14. 3 years is nothing for us shinobi. You never know what mission will be your last. That cat might do us in next time. Naruto was still pulling on Lee. But, I do not even know what to do on a date, Lee said lamely. Don't worry about that. I wrote you a list of what to do. Here, take it. Read it on your way down. Trust me, this is golden. You'll have her swept off her feet by the end of the night. Naruto stopped pulling, gave Lee a folded-up piece of paper, and then gave Lee his nice guy pose. Naruto. Tears started to stream from Lee's eyes. I thank you so much for giving me this passionate opportunity. I will not fail you. Lee started running towards the ramen stand. His nose was deep in Naruto's instructions. When did you write that? Hinata looked at Naruto suspiciously. She hadn't seen him write anything down today. Well, I kinda lied. I didn't write it for him. I wrote that while we were at the academy. It was what I would have done. Naruto scratched his head sheepishly. Hinata sighed. At least they had succeeded. She had nothing more to do with this. Well, we need to get going too. Bushy Brow was going fast, so it'll be hard to catch up to him. What? Hinata snapped her head quickly to look at Naruto. I want to know how the date goes, don't you? I mean, I did write it up after all. Hinata groaned. Of course, they were going to follow them. But try as she might, Hinata couldn't quite kill the urge to know what Naruto planned out on a date. So she nodded her head and they ran off in the direction their teammate went. Ayame stood outside her father's ramen stand. She felt very out of place when not in her restaurant attire. Her hair was still in its typical ponytail at least. She was in a bright yellow t-shirt and pink pants that stopped above her ankles. She also wore what she figured were ninja sandals. Almost every ninja in the village wore them after all. She couldn't believe he had talked her into doing this. The nerve of that man she called father. He had told her she spent too much time in the kitchen and not enough trying to find a boy. He had said he was doing it for her good. Ayame wouldn't have had any qualm if it had been a good-looking boy. Or at least one her age. Instead, she got Naruto's crazy teammate. Naruto. The only reason she had even said yes was that damn pathetic look he had given her. She just couldn't say no to the one she had come to view as her little brother. She heard Lee long before she saw him. The boy was like a freaking elephant with the way he was stomping on the ground as he ran through the village. Then the noise stopped. After a few seconds, she saw the boy walk around the corner of the shop, trying to look as if he'd walked the whole way. It would have been convincing if he hadn't been drenched in sweat. He bowed low. Ayame-san. I thank you so much for giving me the pleasure of your company tonight. I will make it a most youthful experience for you. Ayame sighed. She looked him up and down before speaking, down 2 points. Huh? Lee looked at her blankly. Don't give me that look, the test has already begun. You lose 2 points for wearing the same clothes you always do, you have to dress up for a date, you know? Ayame glared at Lee. But anyways, at least you're on time. So I'll forgive you this once. Ayame cut off Lee's excuse. So what's the plan? You do have a plan, right? She looked at Lee expectantly. Of course. Lee stood a little straighter. I thought we should have a nice meal first, then we will go to a movie afterward. Followed by that I thought we could take a nice stroll through the park and then I will walk you home. That's not bad. You pass there. So where are we going to eat? Ayame gave him a thumbs up for his good answer. We're already here. Lee said proudly. Huh? Ayame looked around. Then she figured it out. Who wants to eat at the place they work for a date? Down 3 points. Down 4 points. Lee wasn't the only one getting yelled at during that particular moment. Hinata was much more discreet though. They had a cover to keep after all. Naruto-kun. How could you do that to Lee-senpai? Sorry. I told you I wrote that at the academy, where else was I supposed to take a girl? You know the other restaurants would kick me out. They both paused after he spoke. Hinata looked down sadly. Of course, she knew that. She would just be damned if she knew why yet. Lee and she had continued their investigation, but nothing predominant had come out yet. So they were biding their time, waiting for another piece to present itself. Yet the more they waited, the more it seemed it would have to be up to Naruto to tell them. Naruto didn't like Hinata's silence. It was worse than her quiet fury. "Hey, don't worry about it," Naruto started to say. "I'm just being an idiot, I'm sorry." Hinata shook her head. "No, Naruto-kun, I'm sorry too. I didn't mean to yell at you." "Alright, we're both sorry. So let's call a truce." Naruto stuck his hand out. "Yeah, okay." Hinata shook his hand and they both turned to observe Lee and Iam some more. In the end, they ended up eating at the noodle stand anyways, much to Tuchi's amusement. Soon, Iam and Lee finished their meal and he began leading her to the movies. Naruto and Hinata trailed by rooftops, always keeping right above the couple. "Hey, I got a question for you," Iam asked suddenly. "Ask away, Iam-san. I will answer any question to the best of my nurturing ability," Lee shouted. "Down 1 point. You don't need to yell, talk to me, I'm right next to you." Iam chastised. "Sorry, it is a habit I picked up from Gai-sensei." Lee apologized in a normal tone this time. "You learn fast, good." Iam praised. "But your sensei is my question. Why in the world do you dress and act just like him? He can't seem that cool to you, can he? Gai-sensei is the coolest. He practically glows with cool." Lee was shouting again. Iam gave him an look and Lee quickly apologized before continuing. "You see, Gai-sensei is the only reason I am a ninja. I cannot do either ninjutsu or genjutsu, necessary ninja skills. But Gai-sensei took me in anyways and trained me to do taijutsu. I owe my whole way of life to him. So the least I can do to honor him is to act like him. Continue his legacy when his youth fades and keep the legend of the beautiful green beast of Konoha alive." Iam digested what he said for a minute. "That's surprisingly heartfelt. I think I'm starting to see why Naruto-kun respects you so much," she added. "Naruto respects me?" This new information surprised Lee. "A real lot. He always talks about how hard you work and how he plans to train even harder so he can be a great ninja like you. It's nice to see he has someone he can idolize who's close to his age. You know he didn't have friends as a kid?" Iam looked toward Lee as they walked down the street. "Yes, I do. But I do not know why. It pains me so much to see the villagers treat him that way. I feel like if I could just figure out why I could help him." "You would not know anything, would you?" "I'm afraid not," Iam said quietly. "I have a feeling my father knows but he won't say anything. He says the best way we can help him is to be there for him, and let him know we care. What's done is in the past and we have to move forward, for his sake." Lee nodded. "Your father is a wise man, unfortunately, his words do not hinder my need to know this secret. I will find out what it is." Lee held up his fist. Naruto sneezed. Hinata and he jumped back, hoping that their targets hadn't heard. "Man, I want to know what they're talking about." Naruto whined. "Can't you hear them at all?" Hinata shook her head. "We are too high up. We can't get closer and risk them catching us though. Besides, they need a little privacy." Hinata couldn't imagine how embarrassing it would be to find out you were being spied on during a date. The least she could do was give them time to themselves. Finally, they arrived at the movies. "What would you like to see, Iam-san?" Lee looked up at the choices. "You pick, you're the man, aren't you?" Iam crossed her arms while looking at Lee. "Yes." Lee walked up to the ticket booth. "I want 2 tickets to the scariest movie that is playing." Lee places his money on the counter. Iam got wide-eyed. Scariest movie? I don't want to go see a scary movie. Too late, I am Essen. I am the man and I chose the movie already. Lee gave her the thumbs up. I think I am getting pretty good at this role, do you not agree? He held out her ticket. I am rubbed her forehead. You have room for improvement. She mumbled while taking the ticket. As they disappeared into the theater, Naruto and Hinata landed at the booth. 2 for whatever the couple before us went into. Hinata blushed heavily when Naruto spoke. He was buying her ticket. This was almost like a date between them as well. Okay, 2 for Shinsei Toir no Hanakosen. The man behind the counter gave them their tickets and they ran off into the theater. The bathroom was dark when the girl opened the door. Nervously moving her hand around on the wall, she found the switch. A light came on, but that bathroom was poorly lit yet. The girl swallowed hard. She walked slowly towards the third stall from the door. They were all locked and closed. She stopped in front of it and stared up at it. She held her hand in front of the door for a few seconds, poised to knock. After a few deep breaths, she summoned her courage. Knock. 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 Hanakosen, are you done yet? The girl called out. She was greeted with silence. She let out a sigh of relief when a voice answered from the stall. Not yet. The girl's eyes grew wide. She almost screamed, but she didn't. She couldn't do that now. The girl waited a minute before knocking again. Hanakosen, are you done yet? The girl was having a hard time fighting back her tears. Not yet. The eerie voice responded again. The girl waited another minute before knocking again. Hanakosen, are you done yet? A choked sob escaped her mouth as she spoke. I'm done. The door clicked, unlocked and opened slightly. No, do not do it. She is going to get you, run away now. It is not breaking the rules. Lee sat on the edge of his seat, watching the movie between his fingers. An unaffected Ayam sat next to him. Tears fell freely from the girl's face as she pushed the door the rest of the way open. The camera angle shifted to the inside of the stall, looking out at the girl. The look on her face was of complete horror. No, I cannot watch this, tell me how it ends. Lee curled himself into a ball, covering his eyes with both his hands completely. The girl screamed. No. Do not show it to me. Lee kept glancing up every second now. Will you shut up? Ayam put her fingers to his mouth to shush him. This movie isn't even scary. The effects are terrible and we have yet to even see this so-called Hanakosen. They're acting like her appearance is some big secret. Not to mention how predictable this movie is. Man, I don't know what is scarier to watch. Bushy brow ruins his date or this movie. Naruto whispered. Hinata and he were watching the movie from the ceiling. Hinata could only nod in agreement. A painful hour and a half later and a crying Lee and a bored-looking Ayam came out of the theater. Gai-sensei, I have failed this challenge. I will do 1,000 push-ups with no hands after I complete this date. Lee screamed into the air. Who are you talking to? How is that even possible? Lee was about to answer when Ayam held up her hand while rubbing her temples. You know what, don't answer. Let's get the last part of this date going. Not even you can screw up a walk through the park. Is that a youthful challenge? Lee's eyes lit up on fire. Let us make our way to the park with full haste. Lee grabbed Ayam's hand and started running towards the park. What? Wait, it wasn't a challenge. Lee-san, I can't run this fast. Ayam's feet hardly touched the ground the whole way to the park. A winded Ayam now stood at the entrance to the park, trying to catch her breath. Don't you ever do that again. It took her several breaths to complete that statement. I apologize, Ayam-san. Sometimes my fires of youth burn too brightly and I forget myself. Lee bowed low as he apologized. Yeah. So are you going to escort me through the park or not? Ayam had finally caught her breath. Of course. Lee stuck his elbow out towards her. What are you doing? Ayam eyed his elbow peculiarly like it was about to screw right off. When escorting a lady, isn't it common to lock arms? Lee asked. He had been sure it was customary. You have some good sense, after all, Lee-san. Ayam praised. She slid her arm gracefully through Lee's and they began their walk. Naruto peeked his head out of a nearby bush. Nice one, bushy brow, he might be okay yet, after those first two disasters. Naruto sighed in relief. Perhaps we should stop following them for the night, Naruto-kun. Hinata also stepped out from the bush. The sun has almost completely set now and it is getting dark. It'd be a shame to miss the end of this. Just a little bit longer, please, Hinata. Naruto looked at her with big blue eyes. Hinata couldn't say no. The conversation between Lee and Ayam had stopped. Lee was starting to panic. He knew he wasn't a very multi-talented person, but he didn't realize until now that training all day left him with very little to discuss. It sure is getting chilly out. Lee mentally kicked himself in the head. The weather was never a good topic. Yeah, too bad you don't have a jacket to wrap around me. Lee felt another mental kick coming. This was not going the way he had expected at all. He was surprised Ayam was still even here. He had expected her to not even leave the noodle stand with him. The fact that he got this far was nothing short of miraculous. He could only silently thank Naruto for his good fortune. Lee looked ahead and internally cursed his bad fortune. 3 men were walking up to them and Lee didn't like the way they were eyeing Ayam. The looking could have been the end of it, but one of them stepped in front of their path. Whoa, there. He said while holding his hands in front of himself. Mind telling me what such a pretty face such as yourself is doing with garbage like this? The man's friends chuckled as they fell back behind him. None of your business, now get out of our way. Ayam started to push past them. Not so fast there, Toots. The man stretched out his hand to grab Ayam, but Lee's hand knocked it away so fast it took everyone else a second to realize what had happened. Please, let us pass, we do not wish for any trouble. Lee successfully got himself and Ayam through now. I know you, now. The first man said. Hey, he looks familiar to you boys. Now that you mention it, yeah. He's that demon brat's teammate. All 3 men laughed. Lee bristled at their words. He unlinked his arm from Ayam's and turned around. His name is Uzumaki Naruto and you better respect him. He is going to become the Hokage one day. Lee watched as all 3 men burst into laughter. Heh, you hear that, he says the demon is going to become Hokage. The day he becomes Hokage, I'll get eaten by a giant toad. The men laughed harder. Lee gave an indignant huff and turned around. Let us go, Ayam-san. Lee put his hand on her back and began to lead her away. Ayam gave the men a disgusted look before nodding her agreement. Don't walk away from me. The man stepped forward and spit. It flew right into the back of Lee's head. Ayam gasped and quickly pulled out a handkerchief and started to wipe it off. Lee's arms were shaking. It was against ninja code to attack a civilian, but Lee was about to make an exception to that rule. No one insulted his friend and ruined his already failing date on him. Suddenly the whole fight went through his head. First, distract the target, and the handkerchief will do. Then block his blind jab, and counter with a cross to the left cheek. Discombobulate. Dazed, he will attempt wild haymaker. Employ elbow block, and body shot. Block ferro left, weaken right jaw, now fracture. Break cracked ribs, traumatize solar plexus, dislocate jaw entirely. Finish with a heel kick to the diaphragm. In summary, ears ringing, jaw fractured, 3 ribs cracked, 4 broken, diaphragm hemorrhaging. Physical recovery, 6 weeks. Full psychological recovery, 6 months. Capacity to spit at the back of head, neutralized. Lee grabbed the handkerchief I.M. had, turned around, and threw it in the man's face. The man was surprised and threw the punch Lee had predicted. Lee stepped forward and blocked the man's punch and proceeded to punch him in the jaw. He then clapped his hands on the man's ears. Lee blocked the man's next shot and followed with a punch to the man's stomach. Blocking another shot, Lee punched the man again in the jaw. Then he punched the man twice more in the stomach and another shot to the jaw. Lee then jumped and kicked his opponent clear in the stomach, sending him sprawling. The whole scene happened in less than 6 seconds, leaving all spectators in a mix between confusion and wonderment. Lee walked up to his date and bowed. "I apologize for that intrusion, I.M.S.N. Shall I escort you home now?" "Yeah." I.M. was seldom speechless. But what Lee had just done left little room for her to be much else. She let Lee lead her back to her house without another word. The two men stood there looking confused. "I think you should take your friend home." They both jumped and turned around to see said demon brat. "It wouldn't be wise to tell anyone what really happened, got it?" The men nodded quickly, picked up their fallen friend, and dragged him to the hospital. Naruto was looking in the direction they were going, but Hinata knew he wasn't seeing them. He had a faraway look in his eye. Like everyone else, it took them a minute to realize what had happened too. Naruto had been trying to get at the man when he had spit on Lee, and Hinata had been trying to hold him back. When they looked up, the man was already down for the count. "I had no idea anyone else actually believed I could become Hokage," he said to himself. "I know you can do it." Naruto now looked at Hinata. She started to press her fingers together but continued talking. "You are always working very hard, you give everything your all. You also really care about people. Those are good traits a Hokage needs." Naruto wiped away tears that were starting to form. "How uncool." "Thank you, Hinata. Thank you. You're way cooler to hang out with than Sakurakin." Hinata blushed at his praise. "I'll walk you home, okay? We're done following them." Hinata nodded happily. Lee and I.M. arrived at the ramen stand. I.M. finally recovered from her shock. "Lee-san, you know, that was cool, what you did. You aren't going to get in trouble for it, are you?" Lee shook his head and leaned in to whisper. "The best part of dressing this way is no one is willing to admit they lost to me." I.M. couldn't help but chuckle at that. It's nice to see Naruto has someone that cares about him. "Thank you for everything tonight, Leekin." I.M. gave Lee a quick peck on his bushy brow before she turned and went inside. Lee sat there in a daze. His first date had been a success. Lee couldn't help it. Yahoo! Lee jumped high into the air. When he landed, he sprinted off towards the training grounds. His flames were burning brighter than ever, and it was going to take some serious exercise to fan them down. The Hokage sat waiting on his chair. 7 o'clock was the time when he officially started handing out missions, unless, of course, the mission was urgent enough to be dealt with immediately upon request. Not many shinobi teams showed up at 7 in the morning though to receive missions. It was mostly older jonins who suffered from the trauma of past experiences and found it hard to sleep. Only one genin team would possibly be here so early in the morning. Sarutobi smiled as that team barged into his office. He pushed the paper under his hand forward. He had just the mission for this exuberant team. "Good morning, Hokage-sama. This is Team Guy reporting for duty. My team and I wait with youthful anticipation for our first crank mission together." Guy strolled proudly into the office with his students right behind him. Naruto did his absolute best to restrain himself. 2 weeks ago and he would have been all over the place wanting to know about the mission. Hinata meanwhile smiled nervously at the boy's antics. While she was glad to finally be going on a real mission, she couldn't help but feel anxious at the same time. Lee appeared completely calm. Crank missions to him were more of a chore than anything. Instead of being out in the field, he would rather be inside the village training. Yes, Guy, I had been expecting you and your team. It is with great pride that I give your team this mission. Instead of explaining it to you though, I'll have the client brought in. Sarutobi cleared his throat and called in a louder voice. Send him in. A couple of seconds passed and nothing happened. The whole room stared curiously at the door, waiting for something. Without warning, it flew open and an old man with a bottle of booze stumbled into the room. Damn it! Who leaves for a mission at this early an hour in the day? The man cursed before taking a swig of his jug. I have to drink simply to keep myself awake. Now who is the team assigned to help me? I don't see any super ninja in here. The man looked around the room, scanning completely over Guy and his team. What the hell, we have to protect this drunk old man? The Hokage chuckled. The old Naruto still managed to show his way through after all. Who are you calling drunk? I'll have you know, I am the man responsible for building the greatest bridge ever. The land of the waves is about to become well known thanks to me. The name's Tazuna, remember it. Tazuna took another swig before continuing. And what do you mean pretty ECT? A shrimp like you couldn't protect a turd. Why you, I'll kick your ass. Lee was holding Naruto in a full Nelson before he had even started speaking. Naruto could do nothing but swing his arms randomly. Naruto, enough. Guy finally spoke. Naruto immediately stopped swinging his arms but was still fuming. We are all shinobi, sir, and I assure you, we will protect you until your bridge is completed. If you have any qualms about my charges being a little young, fear not. I am a jonin. Nothing will touch you with me around. A jonin, eh? Not bad, I never would have guessed, looking at you though. You and your little clone over there look more suited to the circus. Tazuna laughed aloud to himself. No one else joined in. Students, meet at the south entrance in 15 minutes. I will escort Tazuna-san there myself as we discuss the mission specifics. Guy stepped forward and put his arm over Tazuna's shoulder. Yes, Guy-sensei. His students responded. They filed out the door, but not before Naruto managed to give Tazuna one more dirty look. Well, shall we go? Guy smiled brightly as he and his client stumbled towards the door. Yeah. I hope you guys know what you're doing. Tazuna was uncomfortable with Guy's proximity. The Hokage was again alone in his office. His big smile had gone unnoticed by all the room's previous occupants. He just knew they'd get along fine. There are my favorite customers. Tucci said happily as Team Guy hurried into the noodle stand. So how did it go? Did you guys get your first crank mission? We sure did, Naruto said bitterly, confusing the older man. Isn't that a good thing? He looked to Naruto's teammates for an answer. Naruto-kun didn't get off to a good start with our client, Hinata answered quietly. Does Naruto get off to a good start with anyone? I asked as she came out from the back room. I am Essen. Lee shouted in joy at seeing the older woman. A quick glare from her shut him up quickly. I told you, Lee, you can drop the san. Just my name is fine. She decided not to scold him for his loud voice. It would take a long time to break him of that habit. Oh, yes, of course. Lee said happily, a deep blush on his face. So when do you guys leave? Tucci cut the two of them off before they could say anything more. 15 minutes. Naruto took a seat at the stand. I need at least one bowl before we leave, we might be gone for a few weeks. A few weeks? I asked in surprise. Yeah, we're helping some old man finish a bridge, Naruto grumbled. Some crank mission. So you guys won't be fighting anyone? The older girl sounded slightly relieved. Well, we are bodyguards, but the chances of us fighting anything stronger than bandits is slim to none, Lee answered easily, earning a concerned gaze from Ayam. They are shinobi, after all. Tucci threw down a bowl of ramen which Naruto began to inhale immediately. I'm sure you'll all come back safe. Of course. Lee nodded exaggeratedly. Well, you guys be careful. Ayam looked at all three of them now. Hey, no worries. Naruto said as he finished drinking down the broth. We've been training like mad. I bet Hinata could defeat everyone no problem. But you better save some for me, okay? Naruto turned to his female teammate. Hinata's face turned slightly pink but she smiled at him. I'm sure there will be more than enough for you. Naruto nodded. There better be, just thinking about it makes dealing with that old fart seem worth it. Alright, well you guys better go, you don't want to keep your client waiting. Tucci chided the group lightly. Right, come on guys. Naruto set off with newfound fire. Hinata giggled slightly and followed after him. Hey, Lee. Before the spandex-clad boy could go, Ayam called out to him. He turned back to her questioningly. When you get back, we should go on another date. No horror movies though. Lee's face lit up in a huge smile. Yes. I shall be sure that we finish this mission in a most youthful fashion so that I may return to you in due time. Yeah. She was used to dealing with his weird speech by now. You better hurry or they'll leave you behind. Right. Lee saluted the two before turning and running after his team. Ayam watched them go down the road before she noticed her father staring at her, a strange smile on his face. What are you looking at? Oh, nothing, Tucci said as he went back to preparing noodles. Damn it, what is taking them so long? Naruto stomped his foot impatiently. He and his teammates stood just before the gates that led out of Konoha. Its massive doors hung wide open, waiting for someone to cross them. The temptation for Naruto was almost too great. He wanted to get out there and get the mission underway. Crappy client or not, it was finally a crank mission. They'll be here soon, Naruto, Lee responded. He was leaning against the wall next to the gate. It has only been 20 minutes. Gai Sensei is with a civilian so naturally, it'll take a little longer. I'm sure they'll be here any second now, Hinata reassured her blonde teammate. She stood right next to him, twiddling her thumbs nervously. Yeah. I know, I'm just so excited to get out of this village. I've never left it before. It must be great out there. Naruto turned around and gestured to the world lying just outside the gates. It's not so much different from here. Not that I've been out for myself. Lee looked up and thought. What about you, Hinata? Have you been out of the village? Naruto turned to look at her. A couple of times. But I was much younger and did not get to see much. It was always for the family business. Naruto blanched at the mention of Hinata's family. He didn't know any of them but he knew he didn't like them. A few brief conversations with Hinata made sure of that. Students, we have arrived. All three of them immediately stood at attention as Gai and Tazuna, whose bottle of booze was noticeably absent, strolled into the vicinity. Jeesh, you think a shinobi would have the common sense to keep quiet at this time in the morning? Tazuna looked around at the other few random citizens who were up and about. Not a single one of them paid any mind to Gai and his antics. What a crazy village. What was that, old man? Naruto stepped toward the bridge builder. Tazuna was about to retort but Gai beat him to it. No threatening the client, Naruto. He is a good man trying to connect his country to the rest of the world. He reminds me a little of you. Don't compare me to him. Both shouted and pointed at each other at the same time. Hinata chuckled while Lee broke out into a broad grin. Damn it, let's just go. Naruto started for the exit of the village. Yeah, the sooner this is over the better. Tazuna also began walking. The rest of the team followed suit. Immediately upon stepping out of the village, Naruto charged forward 10 yards before turning around. Finally! I'm out of that village. Naruto jumped around excitedly. I am doomed. Why would I have to be stuck with little kids? Tazuna knew he should have put in for Brank. You better watch it. This little kid is going to become Hokage someday. Naruto pointed to himself. Hokage? Tazuna laughed. Kid, I don't know if you've heard, but the Hokage is the strongest shinobi in your village. A brat like you has no chance in hell. I'll become Hokage, just you watch. And when I do, everyone will have to stop disrespecting me and acknowledge my existence as a person. As a great shinobi. Naruto folded his arms proudly. I wouldn't acknowledge you even if you did become Hokage. It'll take more than that to sway my mind. Tazuna walked right past Naruto. The blonde boy ground his teeth hard. He wanted to scream at the old geezer. Then he felt a hand on his shoulder. Naruto looked up to see Lee standing there with him. Hey, don't worry about him, Naruto. He doesn't know you. If anything, just remember that your teammates accept you. Lee gave him the nice guy pose. Naruto took a few deep breaths before visibly relaxing. You're right. Thanks, bushy brow. Naruto returned the pose. Now let's get going. Naruto started strolling after Tazuna. Nothing was going to ruin this mission for him. Lee smiled and walked at pace with Naruto. The team strolled for a few hours, making their way down the path that would eventually take them to the Wave Country. Naruto got bored quickly as he realized the only thing that seemed to exist outside of the village were trees. Nothing too special. Not a whole lot was happening either, and the three genin settled for making light conversation. The guy was not as easygoing as his students though. Something was off about this to him. Guy just couldn't put his finger on it. So he decided to be wary and keep his eye on the bridge builder. Of course, he kept his youthful exposure shown at all times. He had a reputation to keep. He just made sure to observe while he did this. Soon, Guy saw it. A puddle. His students walked by it carelessly. After all, what harm was a puddle? The problem was it hadn't rained in days. It shouldn't have been there. Guy made a quick decision. There was something he had to confirm, he just hoped he was wrong. He too walked past the puddle without giving it a second glance. Guy cleared his throat, and once he was sure he had everyone's attention he spoke. I'm going to go on ahead for a few minutes and inspect the road ahead. Naruto gave their sensei a perplexed look. Why? Is something the matter? Tazuna quickly made his voice heard. Yeah, don't just leave me with these kids. What if something happens? Fear not, I won't be long. There is just something I need to confirm. Before anyone could say anything else, Guy vanished. Everyone stared blankly at the spot he had just been in for a moment. Let's just continue walking. I am sure Guy Sensei will inform us upon his return. It is nothing to worry about. Lee made a small hand motion for everyone to continue. I agree, Hinata said, worry evident in her voice. Yeah, whatever. Naruto smiled happily to himself before he started walking forward. Hinata quickly fell into step with him. Hey, don't leave me. Tazuna quickly ran up to the two of them. Lee smiled before he too started to walk. He didn't get any further than 2 steps when the sound of footsteps and chains reached his ears. Without any warning, he was suddenly quickly surrounded by spiked chains. What the? Lee turned his eyes slightly left and then right. To either side of him were identical-looking men with gas masks and giant claws. They appeared to be linked together by the chains. Let's finish this while the Jonin is gone. The one shouted, and they simultaneously pulled back their arms, causing the chains around Lee to constrict. Bushy brow. Lee Senpai. Naruto and Hinata turned around just in time to see the two shinobi make this action. To their utter horror, it looked like Lee was about to be sliced into pieces. Fortunately and to their relief, Lee seemed to disappear just a second before the chains got to him. What the hell? One of the shinobi asked in surprise before a foot buried itself into the side of his face, shattering his mask. Naruto! Lee shouted as he jumped backward to avoid the other shinobi's claw. I need you to protect Tazuna-san. Hinata. Back me up. Right. Naruto obeyed Lee without question. Next to Gai Sensei, he had the most experience in the field after all. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. 3 clones popped into existence and they all formed a circle around Tazuna. Meanwhile, Hinata took a nervous step forward. Her breathing quickly became irregular as she stared at the brawl that was quickly erupting in front of her. Hinata! Lee shouted as he rolled under the chain. Two can't, Hinata whispered. These guys theory real someone like me I'll only get in the way. Hinata slipped down to her knees. Lee wasn't able to respond as he backflipped over both claws. He brought both of his feet down onto the shinobi's heads, knocking them forward. Go for the bridge builder. The one with the broken mask shouted. I'll hold this guy off. Right. The other one shouted as he charged forward. As if I'd let you. Lee rolled in between the two again. Konoha-senpai. Lee delivered a powerful spinning kick to the one who stayed to face him. The man was thrown backward. The chain that connected the two snapped tight and the other brother was also pulled backward. His body was still parallel to the ground when he passed by Lee. The genin didn't waste any time and drilled his elbow into the man's solar plexus, forcefully slamming his body into the ground. Disconnect the chain. The other shouted. With a loud hissing noise the chain popped free and the shinobi who was farther back charged forward. I won't let you past me. Lee assumed his token stance. Don't get cocky because of a lucky shot. The shinobi on the ground next to Lee swung his body around, bringing his legs forward in a sweep. Lee was caught completely off guard and fell backward. Meanwhile, the other shinobi jumped clear over him. Hinata! You have to stop him. Lee shouted again as he caught himself just before he hit the ground. Worry about yourself. The man swung his claw forward. Lee pushed off the ground and launched straight into the air, well above the strike. Hinata's body was visibly shaking as the shinobi ran toward her. She cursed and screamed mentally at herself. She had spent 2 whole weeks training for this. For a chance to prove herself in a mission. Yet here she was, scared and on her knees at the first sight of real danger. The man ran right past her, not even bothering to give her a second glance. You're mine. He shouted in glee as he swung his claw toward the bridge builder. Like hell. Naruto spread his arms out and took the full force of the blow to the chest. The man was completely taken aback as his arm made contact with flesh and he was even more surprised when the blonde popped into smoke. A shadow clone but he's just a genin. The man took a slight step back in his surprise. You better not underestimate me. 2 more Narutos ran forward while one stood next to Tazuna. One clone ran directly in front of the other and as the shinobi swung at the front one the second jumped onto the clone's back and leaped forward with his fist outstretched. Naruto's punch connected with the man's jaw, sending him to the ground with a dull thud. Damn you, the man spits out blood as he stumbles to his feet. Not done? The clone in front asked as he turned around. Then try this on for size. He outstretched his hand. The other clone grabbed onto his arm. Naruto grits his teeth and pulled the other with all his might, spinning in a circle as he did. The other clone was instantly pulled off the ground, his feet now swinging high in the air. Naruto clone hammer. The two shouted as the feet of the clone being swung smashed into the side of the shinobi's face, knocking him down again. This time he didn't get back up. Impossible. The other shinobi turned his attention away from Lee as he watched his teammate get knocked out by Naruto. Big mistake. The man felt all the air leave his body as Lee delivered a powerful blow to his stomach. He slipped down to his knees and then fell face first to the ground, also unconscious. Lee let a long breath out. That had been too close. A slow and loud clapping noise reached his ears. He spun around quickly to see Gai Sensei standing there, a huge grin plastered across his face. Well done, students. That was most excellent. Gai walked up to where Naruto and Tazuna were. That was a nice move there, Naruto. It was filled with so much youth. It was nothing. It's thanks to you that I came up with it. Naruto smiled happily at his sensei. Lee. Gai turned his attention to his oldest student. Excellent job in taking command. I knew I could leave it to you. Gai gave his student a thumbs up. A gesture Lee eagerly returned. Hinata felt tears coming to her eyes. While her team had been fighting with all their might, she had sat here and done nothing. She was useless. All the confidence she had been trying to build up led to nothing in the end. Hinata. She looked up at Gai. He turned the thumbs up towards her now. Don't worry about it, you'll get it next time. She couldn't believe it. Did he forgive her? That easily? But she had failed. How could he? Lee walked in front of her and extended his arm. You should have seen me on my first encounter with common highwaymen. Tenten and Niji had to save my butt. I was so miserable I thought I would never get better. We are not supposed to fight other shinobi yet anyways. Hinata stared at his hand for another few seconds. She then looked over to Naruto. He saw her look and smiled brightly. Thanks for giving me the shot at that guy, Hinata. I wanted the chance. He put his arms behind his head and gave her an approving nod. Hinata couldn't help but smile. She loved her team. She wiped away her tears and accepted Lee's hand up. As she got up, her eyes took on the most determined look she ever had. I'm sorry, Lee-senpai. Next time will be different. Lee nodded enthusiastically. You guys did excellently. There were a couple of times I almost interfered, but I'm glad I didn't. Gai walked over to a tree, set the ninja down, and began tying them up. Fortunately, I was able to get all the information I needed from watching. Information? You let things escalate to that just for information? I thought for sure I was going to die. Tazuna pointed an accusing finger at Gai. He then added in a quieter voice. Although you proved to be a pretty skilled kid. I shouldn't have doubted you. Super sorry. The end was little more than a whisper, but Naruto heard it all. Hey, it's no problem. I was being a brat. So long as we are on the same page now, it's all good. Naruto smiled big at Tazuna. That's the problem, I don't think we are on the same page. Gai walked up to Tazuna. The bridge builder couldn't do anything but look away from the man's piercing gaze. Wait, what do you mean, Gai Sensei? What are you talking about? Naruto looked between the bridge builder and his sensei. He didn't get what was going on here. There shouldn't have been any shinobi. Lee began to explain. Crank missions are of basic protection. Highwaymen, bandits, maybe rabid animals. There is never an enemy shinobi. This has been my first ever encounter with one myself. The fact that there were shinobi automatically makes this a rank. Possibly even an A, exactly, and the shinobi were after you, Tazuna-san. Now explain to me why this is. If you don't, I will end this mission right now. We will turn around and go home. Sensei, you're being. Gai held up his hand to silence Naruto's protest. I need to know what I'm up against. I can't risk your precious lives without knowing the full extent of the danger. Gai continued to stare intently at Tazuna. Tazuna let out a big sigh. I have no choice but to tell you. He let a dramatic pause take over. But please, get me to my ferryman. I will explain all about it on the boat ride over. Guy looked to consider for a minute. Sensei, please let us continue. It would only make my failure bigger if we don't move forward. Guy turned and looked at Hinata. It was true that she had become more confident lately, but saying she wanted to continue was not something he expected from her anytime shortly. The guy couldn't refuse now. They were less than an hour from the wave anyways. Might as well get that far. Okay, we will get you there. But I warn you, if you are not completely honest with us, I'm cutting you off. Thank you. I'll hold nothing back. Tazuna bowed to them gratefully. Good. Let's set out, team. They left the pair of brothers unconscious under the tree. Not even Guy noticed the masked shinobi who had watched the whole fight. You say the demon brothers were defeated by a couple of genin? A shirtless shinobi slammed down a massive blade in a show of dissatisfaction. That is correct, Zabuza-san. The masked shinobi who had watched the fight said. He was bowed down in front of the tall man before him. The man called Zabuza stared coldly at the boy before him. Tell me, Haku. What do you think of the skill of the team? Haku looked up in surprise at the question. Two of the genin are very new. I would say they haven't been shinobi for even a month. However, one can use the Kage Bunshin no Jutsu effortlessly. The other is without a doubt a member of Konoha's Hyuga clan. Judging by her forehead, I'd say she is from the main branch. A Hyuga? Zabuza sounded interested now. He didn't say anything further than that though. Yes. As for the other two shinobi were peculiar. Haku spoke carefully now. Zabuza said nothing, but his narrow eyebrow raised slightly at Haku's word choice. They were both dressed entirely in green spandex, had bowl cuts, and incredibly bushy eyebrows. Haku somehow felt embarrassed just describing the two. Zabuza's face seemed to show some realization, so Haku quit talking. Might Guy, the tall shinobi drawled. Haku didn't reply. Supposedly the only jonin Konoha capable of matching the famous copy ninja in a fight. The strange green beast. That man? Haku couldn't help but let his doubt show through. But if he is capable of matching the copy ninja, doesn't that effectively tie him for second strongest in the village, only outclassed by the Hokage? If you don't count the Sannin, who have cut their ties from that village, then yes. Haku was surprised to see the gears in Zabuza's brain actively spinning. If what you say is true, I imagine his students didn't use much other than taijutsu, am I right? Zabuza mounted his massive blade onto his back. That's correct, Haku said. The blonde did use shadow clones, but they were extremely well coordinated in hand-to-hand combat. Zabuza seemed to think about everything Haku had just said. I'm going to need your help for this one, Haku. Zabuza-san? The masked boy asked curiously. We're going, come on. Zabuza began walking off, a confused Haku trailing right behind him. Guy's team arrived on the bank of a giant lake. Due to the thick mist, they weren't capable at all of seeing the other end of it. Over here. They heard a man give a hoarse whisper from their left. They turned and saw a man with a small rowboat waving them over. Tazuna breathed a sigh of relief. You have no idea how happy I am to still see you here. Tazuna led the shinobi over to the ferryman and boarded without preamble. Guy's team did the same and they were quickly on their way. This is what you got to help you? Children? The ferryman looked at Team Guy questionably. It's all I could afford. Tazuna held his hands in defense. Besides, don't underestimate them. They've saved my life once already. The ferryman still looked doubtful. I still don't know why it was necessary. Guy caught Tazuna's attention. You say all you could afford? Is your land that bad off? What happened that could put you in such a state? Gator. Was Tazuna's easy answer. Guy's eyes widened in recognition. I see you've heard of him. Yes, The same Gata that runs the shipping company. He may seem like just a businessman, but underneath he is little more than a pint-sized gangster, selling drugs, women, and whole countries. He is the man after my life. Naruto, Lee, and Hinata stared wide-eyed at his story. But I don't understand. Why would such a powerful man want you dead? Lee had been the first to find his voice. Because of the bridge. Tazuna gestured to his left and they all turned to see a massive structure take shape in the mist. Wow, it's so big. That's incredible. You're making that? Naruto had a newfound respect for the man they were guarding. But why should he oppose you making this bridge? Hinata too couldn't believe the size of it. Our country is cut off from the mainland. We do all our trading by boat. Gata bought out all our shipping industries and now has a monopoly on the land. He has made us very poor. The only thing standing between his complete control is the completion of the bridge. If I complete it, I can break his grasp. Tazuna slammed his fist into his palm. He worked himself up during his speech. After a few deep breaths, he continued talking. By the time I realized Gata was sending Shinobi after me, we were too poor to hire higher level protection. There is no way we could afford it. I just needed something. It looks like I lucked out with you guys though. Tazuna sat up on his knees and clasped his hands in front of himself. Please. You have to protect me. For the sake of my country. For my daughter and grandson, I need to complete this bridge. I know it's not much for now, but in a few years, we would be able to pay you back in full. We just need to get on our feet first. The three genin all had tears forming in their eyes. His story had touched them. They all turned to their sensei. Guy sighed. How could I possibly sleep well at night if I turn you down now? Okay, we'll do it. Guy gave him the thumbs up and one of his flashy smiles. The effect was slightly ruined by the mist, however. Thank you so much. My country owes you our existence for this. Tazuna wiped away tears he had been holding back. Don't thank us yet, the next group won't be pushovers like the last two, I may even have trouble soon here. His three students looked at him in disbelief. The same thought ran through all their minds. How could anyone be trouble for someone as fast as their sensei? Soon the boat went under a tunnel and they came out into a small river. Wow, look at that, trees are growing in the water. Naruto looked around excitedly at everything in this new land. To his disappointment, nothing else stood out all that much. At least the river trees had been cool. The boat docked a short while later. This is as far as I go, Tazuna. Everyone disembarked from the boat as the ferryman talked. I thank you for making this risk for me. Tazuna bowed to the man as he paddled his way back down the river. They watched him go until he disappeared. Okay, team. Guy said in a normal tone. From here on out we are going to be moving slowly. We're in enemy territory. Hinata, I need you to take up the rear behind Tazuna. Naruto and Lee stand on either side. I'll take the lead. Don't drop your guard until we are in the village. Yes, Gai-sensei. All his students replied in hushed voices. They followed their sensei's directions immediately. Hey, no need to be so serious, Tazuna said nervously. You guys took care of that last group no problem. Which is why now we have to be extra cautious. They'll send out the strongest they got now. Worst case possible, they send a jonin. Guy continued to speak at a normal volume. Jonin? You mean like yourself? Tazuna gazed around the misty area nervously. Don't worry, Tazuna-san. No matter how tough the opponent, I won't let him get you. Guy turned and smiled at their client. How touching. A raspy voice echoed. Everyone suddenly grew tense. Hinata. Guy said hurriedly. Byakugan. Hinata activated it before her sensei could say anything more. Her eyes grew wide at what she saw. Everyone! Duck! Hinata dropped to the ground as she shouted. Naruto and Lee each grabbed an arm on Tazuna and pulled him down with them. Guy didn't bother to drop at all. He turned just as a giant spinning sword appeared out of the mist. Guy stuck his arm out and caught the blade right by the handle. On it bad. The voice rang from multiple directions at once. This sword, Guy stared at the blade he was holding. You must be the ex-Kiri Shinobi. One of the 7 swordsmen, Momochi Zabuza. I'm touched. You know my name. The voice came from directly above him. Guy turned his gaze upwards. A shirtless man was falling straight towards him. A replica of the blade Guy was holding was also in his hand. Guy swung the sword in his hand up as Zabuza swung his down. The blades connected and Guy's dissolved into water upon contact. TCH, a water clone. Guy cursed and took a small leap backward, completely avoiding Zabuza's blade. Lee, Hinata, Naruto. Surround Tazuna. No matter what happens, protect him with your life. Yes. The 3 genin formed a triangle around the still down Tazuna. No matter what happens. Zabuza chuckled as he pulled his blade from the ground. You might be giving me too much credit there, might Guy. I make a point of never underestimating my opponent. Guy slipped into a token stance as he eyed his opponent up and down. We'll see about that. Zabuza took a step backward and appeared to be swallowed whole by the thick mist. I see, so this isn't a natural mist at all. This is your doing. Guy nodded to himself as he gazed around the thick mist. Observant, aren't you? I wonder how observant you are when I'm chopping your client to pieces. The 3 genin spun around in surprise to see Zabuza standing right in between them, his sword angled at Tazuna's neck. No! Tazuna yelped in fear and tried to move backward. Not so fast. The guy appeared right there a second later, his foot drilling into the top of Zabuza's head. The man broke apart into water and Guy's undeterred foot continued right into the ground, creating a small crater that his genin and Tazuna stumbled into. Sorry about that, team, but I can't afford to hold back here. Guy spun around as he talked and caught Zabuza's sword again as the ex-Kiri Shinobi thrust it forward. Guy took a step forward and delivered a powerful punch into Zabuza's face, breaking him into water. How unyouthful, hiding behind your clones. Guy shouted into the mist as he took a couple of steps forward. Wow, so this is a battle between Jonin, Lee whispered in awe. Naruto even nodded in appreciation. It's on a completely different level from that battle we had earlier. This is so cool. Naruto-kun, Hinata chided lightly but couldn't keep a small smile from gracing her face. Hey. Tazuna sounded worried. Don't forget about me. I nearly died already. You do not have to worry about that. Guy-sensei, I could not possibly lose this fight. Lee said enthusiastically. Just watch. He is about to get serious. Everyone did as Lee said and turned their attention to the powerful man in front of them. Get serious, huh? Zabuza's mocking voice echoed throughout the misty field. Doesn't matter how serious you get, you'll never find me in here. I am an expert on the silent killing technique. When I am in the mist, I am unbeatable. Provided there is any. Guy took a deep breath and closed his eyes. He then appeared to start performing some strange form of Tai Chi. The only sound that could be heard in the mist was Guy's deep, but somehow calm breathing. Are you taking me for a fool? What are you trying to do? Zabuza's question was answered a second later as Guy's eyes shot wide open. First gate, open. Guy widened his stance and waved his arms widely in front of himself. A second later and a great wind passed through the whole area, dissolving the mist as it blew. What in the... Tazuna was the only one who was capable of saying anything at all. I'm possible. Zabuza stood in plain sight now, right at the edge of the riverbank. Before he could even blink, Guy was right in front of him, a powerful fist buried into his stomach. Zabuza was rocketed across the water. He hit the surface but was flying too fast to sink in. Instead, he bounced once, twice, and 3 times before he was able to get stable enough to skid to his feet. Massive waves rolled across the water from the multiple impacts Zabuza had made on it. "You bastard!" Zabuza's face wraps were stained red around his mouth. His sword was somehow still in his hand. "I'll make you pay for that. I'd like to see you try." Guy stepped onto the water himself and was immediately racing towards his opponent. He moved at such a great speed that he almost appeared to be gliding across the water. Zabuza hurled his sword into the air and began running through a set of hand seals. Suetun, Suryuban no Jutsu. The water directly in front of Zabuza rose and formed a large orb. As it completed, Zabuza's sword fell back towards him. Stretching out his hand, the ex-Kiri Shinobi caught it effortlessly. He then swung the sword forward dramatically. As if the orb had been waiting for the signal, it shot off a high number of slim whips of water. "No chance an attack like that will hit me." The guy charges undeterred into the thick of the attack. Every time it seemed like a whip would hit him, Guy would just vanish and appear unharmed a couple of steps farther ahead. In no time he reached the orb and with a powerful spinning kick, he destroyed it completely. "Tch, damn." Zabuza stepped forward and swung his sword. Guy ducked under the swing and delivered another powerful kick that Zabuza jumped over. The two jonin then began to exchange vicious blows. "He's so fast." Tazuna felt hope build up inside him. Something he hadn't felt for a long time. "Yeah, get him Gai-sensei." Lee and Naruto cheered together. "When did Gai-sensei get that fast? That's incredible." Naruto couldn't believe the sudden increase in power their sensei had just received. "It's the Hashiman," Lee answered. Naruto gave him a confused look. Gai-sensei opened the first of 8 gates. Each time you open up a gate your power increases significantly, with risk of course. Supposedly, opening all 8 would give even a genin the power to match a Hokage. Gai-sensei has so gotta teach me that. He's kicking ass with it. Naruto practically drooled at the idea of being capable of matching the old man. Something isn't right. Hinata interrupted everyone's good mood with just that one phrase. She was staring out at the water, her Byakugan fully active. "Come on, Hinata. What are you talking about? Gai-sensei has got this." Naruto waved off Hinata's worries quickly. "No, it isn't that, I just could have sworn I saw something at the edge of my vision a moment ago." Another person, with a mask. Everyone then noticed Hinata's Byakugan was still active. Very suddenly, she spun around. It shocked everyone else so bad that they did as well. What they saw surprised them. "Ah, so much for sneaking up on you guys. Those eyes of yours are troublesome for sure." A masked boy who didn't sound any older than they were stood only about 10 paces behind them. "How did you get here so fast?" Hinata whispered. Just a moment ago he hadn't been within her range at all. Now he was practically right next to them. Speed is an important aspect of any shinobi. I would think you would know that better than anyone, with that man as your sensei and everything. The boy spoke pleasantly to them. No one was able to sense any evil intent. Yet they all kept their guard up regardless. "Are you a member of Kirigakure's hunter squad?" Lee asked curiously as he stared at the insignia on the boy's mask. Haku rubbed the mark of the wave gently as he considered how to answer. "No, I am not," he finally said. "Truth is, I am actually with Zabuza-san. We killed the hunter-nin that was after us and I took his mask." Without warning, a group of shuriken was flying straight at him. How unpleasant. Haku stepped lightly out of the way, right into Lee's waiting attack. "I got you." Lee swung his leg in a high kick. To his complete surprise, Haku caught his kick without even flinching. I apologize, but you'll be coming with me. Haku began running through a one-handed seal. When he finished, a mirror of ice quickly formed behind him. Bushy brow. Lee Senpai. Hinata and Naruto both charged forward. Too late, I'm afraid. Haku stepped into the ice and pulled Lee with him. Hey, take care of Tazuna-san. Don't worry about me. That was the last thing Lee shouted before he was pulled into the mirror. As if it was magic, they both vanished. Naruto and Hinata's screams reached the ears of the two battling jonin. Guy spun around just in time to see Lee being sucked into the mirror. What the hell? Guy stared in horror and took 2 nervous steps toward his team. Hold on right there, Might Guy. You have a choice to make here. Guy spun around, his eyes glaring. If looks could kill, Zabuza would be dead 108 times over. My little pupil there has just dumped your genin into Gada's stronghold, but he'll be coming back in just a second. Now here's where your choice is. You let me go back to the hideout, and I'll make sure nothing happens to him. In exchange, you can keep my pupil over there as collateral. Guy took a step towards Zabuza, ready to continue the fight. Or, you can continue to fight me, but even if you win, Haku will have taken your other 2 students and there will be no way for you to ever find them. So what will it be? Let me go and have a shot at saving all 3 students. Or kill me and lose them? How can I trust you to keep your bargain? Guy seethed between clenched teeth. I still need to kill the bridge builder, Zabuza answered easily. Bring him and Haku on top of that bridge in 2 weeks. Also, be sure Haku has his weapons. Make sure no one else comes, not even your other 2 genin. I'll show up with your last one. We'll finish our battle for good at that time. You shameless bastard. Guy grit his teeth. If even a hair on my precious student is hurt, I'll make you wish you were never born. With that, Guy turned and disappeared facing his students. Zabuza let out a deep laugh as he made his hasty retreat. The whole thing would have been pointless if Guy somehow managed to follow him after all. Naruto and Hinata ran straight into the mirror and bounced off of it completely. No, you bastard. Give Bushy Brow back. Naruto whipped out a kunai and began stabbing the mirror with all his might. His blade broke off completely from the handle on his 5th swing. Let me try. Hinata's past insecurities were completely forgotten as she tried with all her might to save her teammate. She channeled all the chakra possible into her hands until they were both covered in what appeared to be blue lions. Juho Sashiken. Hinata struck again and again with her enhanced palms. Are you sure this is all right? They both spun around to see Haku stepping out from another mirror right behind them. If I had wanted, I could have killed the bridge builder right here. You both left him completely unguarded. Fortunately for you, Zabuza-san has the unfortunate weakness of liking to mentally torture his opponents, so he'll live for today. Tazuna took a couple of nervous steps away from the mirror. You bastard! Where did you take Bushy Brow? Naruto shouted. Your friend is safe. Fear not, we'll have more time to talk later. Haku began forming more one-handed signs. Before he could even get halfway through them, however, Guy appeared. Get away from my students. Haku didn't stand a chance. Guy's fist buried itself into his stomach and the boy was out cold before he even knew it. His mirrors shattered and fell to pieces as Haku's body went limp where he stood. Naruto, Hinata. Guy turned himself and Haku fell to the ground unceremoniously. Lee, the 2 genin looked at each and then back at their sensei. They were speechless. I am sorry. This wasn't how it was supposed to be. Tazuna threw himself at Guy's feet. Please, I'm sorry, forgive me. Tears freely fell from the man's eyes as he begged for forgiveness. Guy clenched his teeth as he stared down at the unconscious boy they now had a prisoner. He then turned back to the water and inhaled deeply. Damn you! Momochi Zabuza. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to like and subscribe, and don't forget to share this video with your friends. Guys, make sure to help the author by visiting the link in the description. This is Fox Sage, and I'm signing off. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to like and subscribe, and don't forget to share this video with your friends. If you want early updates, check out Patreon. This is Fox Sage, and I'm signing off.